All right, so welcome again, and thank you everyone for joining the meeting today or the presentation today. Well, again, this is our monthly Fire Safe Sonoma speaker series, and it is available live on our YouTube channel. So if you go to the Fire Safe Sonoma YouTube channel, the third Thursday of the month from 2 to 3, you'll be able to pop in and view this live. And then if you go to our YouTube channel, you can also find previous speaker series presentations on that channel, on YouTube channel. And I think this is our third year. We're halfway through our third year doing this. So I hope it's a resource y'all can get value out of. I'm Roberta McIntyre, and I'm the host today. I'm also president and CEO of Fire Safe Sonoma. And helping out today from Fire Safe Sonoma is Marika Ramsden and Harry Hubble. Marika will be handling the Spanish channel.
So Roberta, real quick, I think we're having an issue with some of the people in the English channel maybe needing to make a selection from the interpretation toolbar from original audio to English or Spanish.
Yeah, I think that's a quirky thing. I didn't realize it would happen to folks when they popped in because that's new to me. So because we're doing this bilingually, folks, if you're having issues with that, if you go to the bottom ribbon of the screen where your mute button is, your camera and all that, you should see like a globe, planet Earth. And if you click on that, you should have two choices, English or Spanish. So if you're English speaking, you want to make sure and click the English. And if you want to listen in Spanish, you want to click the Spanish button or choice.
Is anyone having trouble finding that option? Raise your hand if so.
And I can point it out on camera too.
Yeah, maybe doing a screen share.
Well, I can do it this way. So right here at the bottom, let's see, you'll see right here where it's English, you'll see a globe here. So your choices are original, you'll see the globe. You want to click on English if you're an English speaker. Okay, clear as a bathroom window.
All right, anyone else still having problems with that?
Okay, I feel like intuitively, I feel like that's working okay now.
Can you ask because they might not be able to
can I have somebody raise their hand if they're having problems with that? Okay, I see no hands being raised, so I'm gonna assume we're okay. All right. Okay, so back to the program. Actually, we have extra time. I think this presentation is meant to go a little slower. So Harry, I'm going to redo the opening slide real quick. And now that we worked out those bugs, and then give you a better spot to cut to for the evergreen. So let me start that over. Bear with me, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fire Safe Sonoma's monthly speaker series. It's a monthly program we do where we have presenters talk about things related to wildland safety and risk reduction. I am Roberta McIntyre, President and CEO of Fire Safe Sonoma, and we have a really good program this month. Also helping us today in the background is a couple of Fire Safe Sonoma folks, Harry Hubble and Marika Ramsden. And Marika is going to be taking care of the Spanish channel, along with Fatima Juarez. She's doing our Spanish translation today. And I don't think we need to reiterate that in Spanish once again, because we just did that in the behind the scenes setup. So again, everyone, thanks for joining us. Last month we had Frances Rossiter on, and she told us all about the 911 system and how the 911 calls get into the system and get handled. Next month we'll have, oh shoot, Harry, who do we have next month?
Next month, we are going to have Julie Atwood
Okay.
talking about animal disaster preparedness from large to small.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, and that's going to be a hybrid. We're going to do the program live from the field out in Bodega Bay, so that'll be fun. If you want to come out in person, it'll be at the Bodega Bay Grange from 2 to 3. And then feel free to jump on a YouTube channel or watch it on Zoom. So that should be pretty cool. Thanks, Harry. When I put this together, I wasn't sure if we had her booked and committed. Okay, so this month, really cool month. We've got some good folks on tonight with some really good information. We're going to be joined by Rachel Ralston and Fatima Juarez from California Housing and Community Development. And as I mentioned earlier, Fatima Juarez is going to be also doing double duty, handling our Spanish translation. And they will be talking about the Recover California 2020 housing programs and how they could be useful for Sonoma County homeowners through 2 grant opportunities available to qualifying Sonoma County homeowners. Rachel Ralston is the California Department of Housing and Community Development's Recover California Housing Programs Outreach Manager, overseeing outreach and engagement for both reconstruction and mitigation programs. Her prior work has focused primarily on project management, stakeholder engagement, data analysis, and strategic planning, including community outreach regarding homelessness and affordable housing issues statewide, homelessness plan development, and capacity building. She has extensive experience with stakeholder engagement, survey and experimental research design, quantitative and qualitative data analysis, and strategic plan development. Do you want to come and work for us? Fatima Juarez has been an outreach associate with the Recover California Housing Program since August 2021. She's worked with the program since its inception with the 2017 and 18 Recover California programs. Her role involves engaging potential applicants through events, canvassing, and communications, as well as ensuring potential applicants have the necessary tools to complete their applications and working with local stakeholders to build partnerships. So those weren't the longest bios we've had, but those are really fun-filled bios. I tell you, you guys got some creds. So with that, I am going to turn the helm over to our guests. And once again, for those that are engaging with us via Zoom or on YouTube, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. I think it's called chat on YouTube also. And what we will do is we'll get to those questions after the presentation. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Rachel.
Great. Thank you so much, Roberta, for the warm introduction. We have Fatima and I are also joined by our colleague Lucretia Hoffman, who's the Deputy Director of the Recover California Housing Programs. She has graciously agreed to join today to help answer some of your more technical program questions. But yeah, so today I am happy to present about the Recover California Housing Programs for 2020. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And Fatima, did you were already able to get the Spanish version of the, or I think someone else was going to drop that in the chat. Did that get dropped in a PDF version of the presentation in Spanish?
Yes, it did.
Great. Okay. All right, here we go. Go ahead and get started here. All right, so today I'll be presenting about the Recover California housing programs for 2020. These are grant programs that are sourced from federal disaster recovery funds for homeowners in specific counties that were affected by qualifying 2020 wildfire disasters. So this includes Sonoma County for, I believe it's the LNU lightning complex fire. So the programs today are we have a reconstruction program and a mitigation program. They're both managed by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, of which we are a part. And today we're going to focus on the mitigation program. But first, just a bit of background about Recover California. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development allocated $231.2 million in federal CDBG-DR funds, which are Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds, to assist homeowners impacted by the disasters that took place in 2020 between August and November. And the two housing programs, their full names are the Owner-Occupied Rehabilitation and Reconstruction, or OOR program, which is for main dwellings that were damaged or destroyed in an eligible 2020 disaster, and the Owner-Occupied Wildfire Mitigation Retrofits, or OOM program, which is the one we're focusing on today, which is for homes that did not sustain damage in an eligible disaster, but are located in an eligible county and have wildfire mitigation needs. So diving in a bit more to the program details, the OOM program provides grants of up to $50,000 to homeowners who have the disaster mitigation needs on their property. And as mentioned previously, the program, the homes qualifying for this program do not need to have sustained damage in the disaster, but they must be located in an eligible county like Sonoma. And eligible activities include those that increase the level of protection against wildfires, including defensible space and home hardening, which we'll explain in more detail later in the presentation. So first, a bit about the eligibility criteria. In order to be eligible for OOM, applicants must have owned and occupied the home in question as their primary residence at the time of the disaster. The home must be located in a HUD-designated eligible county. The homeowner must be eligible to receive federal benefits, which means they're either a U.S. citizen or a qualified alien. And the home must be a titled single-family dwelling or manufactured housing unit on a fixed pad. So ineligible homes are secondary homes, RVs, rental properties, multifamily housing, and condos. Additionally, the homeowner must be current on property taxes, and the household income must be 80% or less of the area median income for the county, as determined by HUD's published income limits. These income limits are located on the Recover California website as well, if you want to check them for Sonoma County. So how is the grant awards determined for the OOM program? This funding is considered gap funding and funding of last resort after other sources have been exhausted. So these things are taken into consideration when factoring in the award determination. An eligible homeowner's award is determined by estimating the mitigation needs and the costs on their property and then subtracting any other funds that are considered a duplication of benefits, or DOB. DOB refers to any funds that may have been given or used for the purpose of home hardening and or mitigation measures and are from sources such as insurance, government, or charity funds. Case managers will work closely with the applicants to determine what is considered DOB throughout the eligibility process. So, a bit more then about mitigation retrofits and what is defensible space and home hardening. Some of the eligible activities related to defensible space under this program include creating a buffer zone around a home, one that's free of any vegetation or other combustible materials, and includes instead non-combustible materials like pea gravel and hardscape. Home hardening activities include fitting a home with materials like fire-resistant roof shingles, gutter guards and trim, as well as fire-resistant skirting around the home. So this slide just goes into a little bit more detail about that with a graphic showing some of these areas and the eligible activities that I just described. So without repeating myself too much, this just again shows that some of the eligible activities in the 0 to 5 foot area include removing those combustible materials I was just mentioning under and within 5 feet of each structure and decks, if applicable, and then replacing them with the non-combustible materials that I described, as well as removing tree limbs and brush within the 5 foot zone and removing deteriorated decks that are beyond repair and replacing them with standard steps and landings. So for the 5 foot to 30 foot area, some of the highlighted activities include creating 10 feet of clearance of bare soil and non-flammable vegetation around all outbuildings in that area. Also removal of tree limbs and brush within 10 feet above the roof and 10 feet away from any chimneys and stovepipe outlets. And then lastly, removing combustible material that's located under and within an attached deck that's located in this area. So again, each homeowner's needs are going to be unique. And so these are going to be on case-by-case basis. Not all of these activities are likely to be included in each homeowner's scope of work. So a bit more about how we prioritize the mitigation activities. So the program understands that the maximum award may not allow for all necessary wildfire mitigation activities that the home might need. As such, the program has the following levels of importance approach in developing scopes for each homeowner to increase protection against wildfires. The funding is first allocated to items that are considered the highest level of importance, which is level 1. And then the scope will go through lower levels 2 and 3 in order until either there are no more wildfire mitigation items or the maximum award of up to $50,000 per household is reached. So for level 1, those activities include placing pea gravel under the home, creating the fire-resistant skirting around the home that we've already discussed, also enclosing porches and decks with ember-resistant skirting, and then stump grinding, hazardous tree removal, and creating defensible space landscaping. Level 2 includes enclosing the gutter elements with fire-resistant material, installing metal gutters and gutter guards, installing fiber cement exterior siding, and then replacing roofing with Class A asphalt shingles and fire-resistant roofing materials. And finally, level 3 includes installing metal exterior doors, which would include a garage door, and installing dual-paned windows. So while these are eligible activities, this is only, of course, if the $50,000 in mitigation awarded funds has not been reached after fulfilling all of the level 1 and level 2 needs on the property. Okay, shifting gears a bit into the applicant and the program process. So staff such as myself and Fatima are conducting outreach to affected communities through media and engagement with local organizations like Fire Safe Sonoma, as well as local community events. Our goal is to reach low to moderate income homeowners and difficult to reach communities and individuals in each impacted area. And I'll review this a few times, but more program information, including the application for the 2020 mitigation program, can be found on the Recover California website, which is down at the bottom of each of these slides to the lower left and is hcd.ca.gov/RecoverCA. Now, all materials on the website are posted in English and Spanish, but you can contact us directly via the website or the email and Facebook if you request materials in a different language other than English and Spanish. So about the application process. Applications for the 2020 Recover California housing programs are available via an online portal called Neighborly, which can be accessed via the Recover California website homepage. Once you've started the online application, case managers are available to assist with the application process and submitting the required documents. There are also fact sheets and FAQ documents that are on the website to help with application questions or other program information. Okay, a bit more about how to complete the application. There are 3 primary ways to complete this. You can use the Recover California website to access the Neighborly portal as we just described. You can also complete the application over the phone with a case manager, or you can use a paper application. The fastest form of submission is going to be completing the online application. And finally, this slide shows a bit about the 2020 program process. So once an applicant has submitted their application, this process map shows what they can expect after that. So after eligibility is determined, the construction management team completes the assessment and creates a scope of work for the mitigation activities on the property. The team will then complete all of the work and inspect the final work defined in the scope. And it is important to note that the process from eligibility to mitigation completion could take up to a year. So without further ado, that's just a little taste of the program, and we welcome any questions that you may have. We're also, I believe Harry may have already dropped into the chat a flyer for the program in both English and Spanish. And that flyer has more information summarized more succinctly from this program that you can grab. I encourage you to grab it and download it to follow up on the program and also distribute to anyone you think might be interested as well. With that, I want to thank you again for having us, and we'd love to answer your questions.
All right, great. Thanks, Rachel. I don't think we have any questions in the chat, but I have a couple. Sonoma County government is running a program they call SoCo Adapts. It's a FEMA funded project that's very similar. I'm wondering if there would be any conflicts in terms of applying for this and or that. And I'm not sure how it worked, but I think the county's program has a percentage of equity that the homeowner has to come to the table with. So it's not 100% funding for work being done, whether it's structural hardening or defensible space. I was hoping that somebody from the county would be able to be here to talk more about that. But anyway, that's kind of it. Would somebody be able to leverage this program and use that, do you think, as match for the SoCo, what they call the SoCo Adapts program, to kind of close that gap?
As far as I know, yeah, I saw a question in the chat. I do believe the SoCo Adapts funding is FEMA, and it would be considered duplication of benefit,
Yeah.
particularly if it's FEMA, unfortunately, yeah.
And one of the questions in the chat looks like, can somebody apply, basically, it sounds like retroactively, if they've just finished doing their roof?
Yeah, so we don't do reimbursements through the program. But if there were remaining mitigation needs, Carolyn, on the property after completing your roof, those other mitigation needs might be eligible. I don't know, Lucretia, if you wanted to add anything.
So yes, I believe they would be able to apply if they're not applying for assistance with getting other repairs made to their home. Then they can apply for our mitigation program but we have to make sure there is an inspection that happens as a part of the mitigation program. And so there is potentially that risk if there's something happening with the roof or something doesn't necessarily meet standards that might present an issue that the program would address with the applicant to kind of talk through what the options are or if the property would not be eligible for assistance. And going back to the question about the SoCo Adapts, like Rachel said, that would be considered a duplication. And if a person is applying to both of these programs at the same time, at some point they would have to choose one or the other. They wouldn't be able to do both. These are both, seem like they're both federally funded programs, which means we cannot use one's funding to supplant another program's funding. So if they are considering both of those, just know that at some point they would have to choose between our two programs to move forward.
Okay, but they could apply for both and hope that they get one or the other at least. Sounds like. Is that
Mhm.
correct? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Another question. Oh, there was a quick question. Is this available in Mendocino County?
Unfortunately, no. This is, so the eligible counties for 2020, they're listed on the website, but Mendocino is not among them. The eligible counties for 2020 are Butte, Napa, Santa Cruz, Solano, of course, Sonoma, as well as Fresno, LA, and then Siskiyou and Shasta. So I realized that was a lot I just gave you, but unfortunately Mendocino is not on that list.
Okay, interesting. Another question is, somebody wrote, when I went into the HCD hub site, the only programs that popped up for Recover California were 2020 and 2021.
That's correct.
Is there a better link to get directly to the most current program, or is it the same thing?
Oh, so let me just take a minute to explain. Yeah, I understand the program years can kind of throw you. So those are the two current active programs, and they are serving disasters that occurred in the year that the program's named after. So the 2020 Recover California housing programs are for 2020 disasters. So that's when Sonoma experienced it's the LNU lightning complex, right? Fire. So that was 2020. So these funds are for either reconstruction for people who are still rebuilding in Sonoma County or the other eligible counties from that 2020 eligible disaster, LNU lightning complex, or who lived in Sonoma County in 2020 and, still do, right? Because they'd have to be the owner occupants of their property, but they live there, they owned their home, they live in Sonoma County. These are the mitigation funds we've been talking about today. They are eligible regardless of whether they were in the burn scar or in any way impacted by the fire, if they have mitigation needs on their property and they fall within the eligible income limits and other eligibility criteria that I reviewed in the slides.
Okay. A questioner asks, would you be willing to open up an application showing the accurate method to link? If we want to consider that, let's hold that to the end after questions. If you guys are willing to do that, that'd be really cool. But I want to make sure we have time to get through the questions first. And then,
Yeah.
if you're willing and if we have time, I'd love to have you walk us through at least, getting an application started. And then the income limits, it sounds like you're pretty clear about the income limits, but a person that we work with had mentioned that she went to apply and wasn't totally sure about the income limits and didn't discover that she was just barely over the income and asset limits until she put in a bunch of time and effort in the application. So would it make sense for people to check that pretty thoroughly before they do the application? And can you real quickly reiterate what the income and or asset requirements are again for us?
So the income limits for Sonoma County actually range. It's based on your household income along with the number of people in your actual household. So, for example, a household of one in Sonoma, 80% of the area median income is considered $77,500, but it goes all the way up to $146,150. Thank you, Rachel,
Yes.
for a family of 8. One of the reasons that we do encourage people to provide us with the required or necessary income information is because we actually use a modified AGI method here in Recover, California. It's not necessarily just based solely on, your pay statements or your tax returns. We do utilize those things to help us figure out your modified AGI, but part of the reason is there may be other factors that play in that might adjust your income that could help a person be eligible for the program who might have just looked at these numbers and self-disqualified. So it does take the effort, and we do appreciate the effort that folks put into completing the application. But we would like to think that it's worth it because we would like to at least show and be able to see if we can work with you to help you be eligible. But sometimes we just cannot because these are federal dollars. We do have to meet federal regulations and things like that. But I do understand that it can take a bit of a process to get that final determination.
So I'm curious, two-part question. How long have you guys been running this program? And how successful has it been in terms of, the definition of success, meaning somebody actually got through the whole process and is able to or did get work done?
Okay, great question. Great question. So we actually launched the 2020 program in October of last year, so mid-October. So our program has been running for about 7 months now. I think we're in our 8th month, and we have already had our first project awarded, which means someone has made it through eligibility, the DOB review, those different steps, the first part of those steps that Rachel showed earlier. And they have been awarded. And so those are going to be our first people who are moving to the latter parts of the project where soon, hopefully, they'll be in construction and things like that. As she also mentioned, it right now our timeline is it takes essentially 12 months from the time you've reached eligibility, which means we received your application and all the required documents. We're able to do an eligibility review. So the time that we determine whether or not someone is initially eligible to the time that their project's completed is 12 months. So unfortunately, we haven't had anyone who's made it all the way to the end yet, but we are on pace with getting people there in the near future, in the next few months, hopefully.
Okay, right. Have you had any issues with people who have applied and in response to an earlier question that was covered that I'll speak to in this question. So part of the process is having a human being go to the site to assess, the actual needs, to establish the needs, basically. So have you had any scenarios where an applicant has done construction without permits and basically has, and if so, do they have to legalize everything before they become eligible to do this very important fire safety work? So for example, let's run a real wicked hypothetical. Let's say somebody put in a water heater without a permit. The guy goes out there, checks for outstanding work or whatever reason, discovers that they didn't apply for a permit to do that little piece of work. Would that hang up the chance of getting this very important fire safety work done?
That is a great question. Very, very much into the weeds. I don't want to give you the wrong answer to that. So I will check in on that and follow up. But I will say this, one of the requirements for our project or our program is that the home was properly permitted, right? So having proper permits and things with your county and everything is one of the requirements. One of the things I thought you were going a different direction with the question at first, Roberta.
I was at first.
Because one of the things I always like to point out to people is that we have to look at eligibility in kind of two ways. There's the first way that is the applicant eligibility, right? Those things that Rachel pointed out, you have to be a US citizen, you have to be within certain income. We're essentially making sure that the person that's applying is eligible to receive assistance. And the second part about overall eligibility is making sure that the property itself is eligible to receive assistance. So that's part of what happens. There's that step where you're completing the application, giving us the documents, working with your case manager. That's to establish that you, as the applicant, would be eligible. And then also looking at if you were applying to our reconstruction or rehab program, that there was damage sustained by the disasters and things like that. And then our inspections team, our construction management team, would go out and do an inspection if necessary to actually verify that the property itself is eligible for assistance. So once we have those two things taken care of, we're able to kind of move the application forward. So I originally thought you were going to say, have you had experiences where a person has maybe passed that applicant initial eligibility and then been deemed ineligible at the property level? And I was going to say, yes, that can happen at times. That water heater question, though, I don't want to mislead you on that one, but that's a really good question. I haven't had that come up before. So I would like to kind of touch base about that and get back to you. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that the Sonoma County program has experienced at least a little bit, where, folks have work that's been done that may have been required to have a permit, but it's really a bummer if that little piece of work becomes a barrier to getting this work done. And I'm not sure if you guys have it built in, but it'd be pretty cool if the program you're running had a way that some of the funds could be used to remedy lower level violations to be satisfied or remedied, to get them a clear pathway to get this good work done, because it's important work. But and I use the water heater because it's really the smallest permit requirement I could come up with. But you could have one for windows or something a little heavier duty, but still relatively minor permit as far as things go, I guess, comparatively. So I don't know. It is a thing that's popped up in the Sonoma County project that they're running.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Uh,
I did see a question in the chat where someone said that they had started their application and got to a point where it says they would need to rent the property. Just to clarify on that one, so when you go and click on the 2020, 2021 application, and it takes you to the neighborly system, there's one universal kind of application, an application portal. Our 2020 program focuses on owner occupant applicants. So you own and reside in or will reside in that home that we fix. Our 2021 program, which is only for people in Plumas County, does have a landlord option. So if you select, it will send you that red stop sign to not go further. If you accidentally select an answer that's only meant for the 2021 program or for the landlord applicant. So if you're applying as a owner occupant for 2020, just try changing your response to that question, or reach out to a case manager, or I can have a case manager reach out to you and we can help you kind of fill out that section, because you should not have gotten that stop sign if you're applying for the 2020 program. I recognize it can be a little confusing, and like Rachel said, we're putting together a video to kind of help with that. But I did want to be able to to help you get through that part of your application. So if you want to shoot me your email or your telephone number, happy to help you with that.
Okay, very good. Let's see, there was another question I had just for a second. I should have written it down. Well, we have a little less than 15 minutes. Would you guys mind just kind of walking through a quick application? Or, I mean, or would 15 minutes even be enough to do any good there?
We can. Are you okay if we kind of show you a test application from the portal?
Sure. Yeah, let's give it a whirl.
Yes. Okay. Give me one moment.
Thank you for your sense of adventure.
I know. It's unplanned. See if it works.
I do have another quick question as well, actually. I think this one is by Priscilla, but what percentage of people who apply are usually, cleared for work?
I thought I covered that. Go
Oh,
ahead.
we may have.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I may not have covered it well.
Okay. So the percentage of people who apply that are, I believe you're asking me how many of them pass eligibility and kind of move into um, award. That is still in progress. So because there are, we have had situations where applicants have maybe started their application and submitted it, but maybe haven't provided us with all the documentation. So I can't, it's not a clear kind of thing. People are at different levels and different steps in the process. I do know I pulled some information earlier. We have somewhere around 60 people who are in that DOB pre-construction, kind of heading towards award if they are deemed eligible for the property. So we do have quite a few people already there. We've received quite a few applications. Some people have withdrawn their applications the more they kind of got into the eligibility criteria for reasons like maybe they didn't own the property at the time of the disaster. They had started construction on their property and they were applying for our reconstruction program. And for various reasons, they may have fallen out. Um, but so unfortunately, I can't give you a set percentage because that number might fluctuate and change over time. But we do have quite a few people who've made it through the later steps in the process, as far as we've had it in the last 7 months.
I remember the question I thought I forgot. So one of our collaborators was an applicant and she, as I mentioned earlier, I think she got to the point where she discovered she was just a little bit over the limit for low income. But she felt like you guys, at least at the time she applied, were a little bit understaffed. How are you guys staffed up currently to deal with the number of applicants so far? And with that in mind, could somebody reach out to you initially to see if they qualify financially before they take the deeper dive?
Okay, so good questions. I'm sorry that she had that experience and felt like we were understaffed. But we are actually in the process of hiring additional team members. We've had some changes on our team, so a lot more hands on deck. And so we are doing our best to not only make sure that we have a sufficient number of team members to assist applicants, but we're also helping them earlier in the process. So not only are we waiting for people to submit their applications, if we see that you've started and maybe you got like halfway through or a third of the way through and then you stopped for a few days, we'll reach out to you. We have team members who will reach out to you to check in and see what's happening so that we can help you to complete your application and help move it forward. We're also doing our best to try to have a stronger presence in different communities. In addition to the outreach events that Rachel has talked about, we hold intake events and things like that. So that's always a great opportunity to meet with someone in person to, if you have questions or if you want to fill out a paper application or finish up something, we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we're meeting our applicants where they are and trying to provide the best possible experience with getting through this application process and the program as we can.
Yeah, I'm not, well, I suspect you guys are running into a bit of a snag that we Fire Safe Sonoma had with one or two projects we tried running earlier. And the problem we had was that you're trying to land on a very niche demographic where you actually have a homeowner that is low income. And we found that's a really, really, really tough demographic to find any large numbers there, in terms of being able to do a lot of good, because, intuitively, I feel like most low-income people cannot or are not homeowners. So is that something you guys are struggling with and maybe have been thinking about working around if you have discovered that?
So one of the things that we often talk about, and I know Rachel and I have had this conversation, is that I think it's important for us to stress that we're going by area median income, right? So what is low to moderate income in Sonoma is going to be different than what's in Siskiyou, which is different than what's in North Carolina, Alabama, Wisconsin. It's really based on your area. So this is another reason why we try to encourage people to engage with us, to ask us questions before kind of self-disqualifying. Because to your point, folks may not consider themselves to be low income if they're making 70, 80, $90,000 a year. But when you compare it to the larger county and area and the number of household members that they have, that kind of adjust where they fall. And that allows us to be able to assist more people wherever we can. Right now, the program's cap is focused on low to moderate income. In our 17-18 program, we were able to extend the income to include urgent need. So that was people between 80 to 120% AMI. Right now, our 2020 program does not do that, but if it does do that, one of the things that we do is we do monitor and track people who have been deemed ineligible due to not being at 80%, below 80% AMI, so that if we do extend it to that 120%, we'd be able to reach out to them and invite them back if they're interested and still need assistance.
Thank you. We're bumping up a little bit on the clock, and I do want
Yes.
to see if we can do the trial application. So the folks, you guys from HCD, are you okay with going a little long? We got after the hour because we got a little bit of a late start due to my technical difficulties, but if you guys are okay with maybe going a little long, we could probably get into an application a little bit. And it looks like the answer is in the affirmative because we're already there.
Okay, sorry about that. I jumped the gun a little bit, but
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah. So I'll do my best to kind of run you through this as much as I can, being mindful of the time. But when you log in to the application, this is what you see. You have a program overview. This page is really good and useful to read through. It lets you know who can apply for assistance, so you can make sure that you fit into these qualifications. You can find out which disasters the assistance is related to. So DR 4558 and 4569 for 2020. You can also see what the requirements are for 2021. We have a little bit of information about what you can expect as a part of the program, what it means to be a part of our Rehabilitation Reconstruction program versus our Mitigation Retrofits program, which is where many of you might land. And then also we have the links to where you can get additional information, our FAQs, our checklist, and things like that, and our applicant hotline number and our main email if you have questions and need assistance. So all of this information is here on the program's first page. You also have this feature right here where it says View Users. And here is where you can actually add additional people to your application. So let's say you are applying and you're using your personal email address, but you want to add your spouse or a communication designee from another agency. You can come here, click Add User, put their email address in, and then they would be able to access your application and kind of see the statuses and the progress and even assist you with completing some of it. We have our preliminary eligibility page. This one is going to be really important that you fill out. Let me reopen it. We do need to know how you heard about our program. And so it has a drop down to kind of make this easier for you. We want to know which county you're applying for, like where is your home or damaged property located. All right, so Sonoma is listed, but let's say for some reason you didn't see your county listed there, you would get this stop sign, and these stop signs pop up throughout the application to kind of help you know that you have not met one of the eligibility criteria for the program, and so you don't necessarily need to continue your application. But if your home is in Sonoma, you would click that. You let us know if you're a part of a Native American tribe. You would select 2020 because again, our 2020 program is only serving Plumas County. And then here you have a list of the different types of assistance that we offer. And so you would let us know what type of project you're applying for. Is it reconstruction for our owner-occupied program? I'm sorry, owner-occupied home, rehabilitation of an owner-occupied home, or mitigation retrofits for an owner-occupied home. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but there is some conditional questions and formatting in the application. So for example, if you had accidentally hit 2021, the next couple of questions actually change and the drop down options change to match that particular program year. So it's really important that when you are going through your application, you're selecting on the options, the program year, that answering the questions that are most relevant to the type of home or project you're applying for. We do have to make sure that at the time of the disaster, you own the applicable property and you occupy it as your primary residence. And was it a single family home? So mobile homes, manufactured homes, stick-built homes, those are eligible for assistance. If you select no, because maybe it's a multifamily unit dwelling, a condo, or something like that, those are not eligible for assistance, and you would find that out as you completed the application.
Let's read out before you go to complete and continue. Can you elaborate on 4A? What's the distinction or difference between reconstruction or rehab and
Okay.
et cetera?
Yes.
Yeah.
So reconstruction is we have to completely build a new home. So if it was a stick-built home, you had like a home on a foundation A-frame, we would have to completely rebuild that. That's considered reconstruction. Our MHU replacements, so let's say a person was living in a mobile home that was completely destroyed or did not fit the requirements to be rehabilitated, then we would replace that. So that's reconstruction where we're giving you something completely new. Rehabilitation is something that happens where maybe the home sustained minor to moderate damage, but it wasn't severe enough or that we would need to reconstruct it, or the home wasn't completely destroyed by the fire.
Okay.
Okay. And then mitigation is your home didn't necessarily receive any damage from the disaster, or there's no damage for us to repair, but you are interested in having us do these things to help make it more resilient and put it in a better place for the next disaster. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. After we do that, so you also see here at the bottom, there is a save button and a complete and continue. So you'll see the save button all throughout the application, and you're able to save it as you go in case you have to gather some more information, or you're not clear about something, or you're just tired, and you want to come back later. Definitely always recommend clicking save, but when you want to mark a page as complete, you're going to hit this complete and continue button to move you to the next section. Uh-oh. Under contact information, this is where we would need you to give us the information that we need to in order to kind of reach out to you and help you. This right here is going to be really, really important, especially if you kind of get stuck. Like I mentioned, we do reach out to folks who have their applications in progress. But one of the main thing that we need for that, though, is a way to contact you, right? So we want to be able to help you. So please list your contact information, your mailing address, your telephone number, your email address, your preferred communication style, if it's email, mail, phone, or regular mail, and your preferred language. We do have a lot of different options. And what will happen is if you pick something that's not English, then it will translate that application over for you on your end, and then it'll come to us in English. And then we'll also know that we will provide some type of interpretation services for you as you move through our program. If you have a legal power of attorney, please let us know here as well, and then provide us with their contact information, right? And upload a copy of the power of attorney document so that we can have that on file. Let's say you don't have a power of attorney, but you do have someone, either a disaster case manager, a family member, someone who you trust that you want to have serve as like a third party that can communicate with us about your application, but they can't make decisions about your application, right? There's someone that we can reach out to if we can't reach you, or they can help if you're out of town or something and we need documents. You have given them the authority to send us those documents. You can create them or list them as what we call a communication designee. And so here, you would need to provide us with that person's information, a copy of our communication designee form, and there's one right there. You can that hyperlink will take you to it. Just fill it out, upload it, and provide us with their information, and we can have it on file. All right. Because for privacy reasons, if we don't have a communication designee form from you, or if we don't have a copy of the power of attorney that lists that person, as having access to your application, we won't be able to answer their questions about it. Even if they call us directly, we won't confirm or deny that we even have an application for you. So this is why it's really important to have that on file.
Right.
And co-applicants. So if there's a co-owner on the property, so on the title, the deed, you do need to make sure that you list them as a co-applicant on the application. So we would ask for their information. And then you have the option to list up to, I believe, 3 or so co-applicants, because sometimes properties are inherited and they're passed down from a parent to multiple children or cousins and things. You want to make sure that those people are listed out. If you have other owners who do not live in the property and they won't be living in the property, but they have an interest in it, we will require that you complete a co-owner consent form, because in order for us to, inspect, do any type of work on the property, we do need permission from all of the owners. Okay. So just be mindful of that, and our team members would be able to provide you with a copy of the co-owner consent form if one is needed. Right? And then of course you're going to save and hit complete and continue. Do not ignore that button like I just did. I'm just doing that for interest for time. But here, our next section is household members, and it's going to be important for you to make sure that you list out all of the household members in your home. And that is important for two reasons, especially if you're applying for our Reconstruction or OOR program. One, we need it for calculating income, right? So we need to account for all of the adults and children, everyone who resides in the home, so that we can make sure that your income matches what our requirements are. We also need it, especially if we're dealing with a reconstruction situation, is for occupancy. So HUD does have standards around how many bedrooms are required in a home based on gender, age, and relationship of the people in the household. So we would need to know who lives in the household, the relationship that they have to the homeowner or the head of the household, their birth dates, all of these things, so that we would be able to make sure that any new homes that we built were compliant with HUD standards. Once you go from there, let me see if it'll let me move over to income. On this page, the first question that comes up, and this is one of those pages that has the conditional formatting because of the universal application, but is the applicable property a home that you own and will rent out when reconstructed, a rental home? So you select no if you're a landlord applying for the 2021 program. You are required to provide your current tenant's information, right? So if you are not a landlord, you can still click no, and then you would just put your information here as the primary applicant. Okay. And then if the primary app, and then you would list all of your income sources, and then if there are any second home household members, you would click on yes, and you would provide us with their information as well, their name, their relationship to you, how much money they earn per year, or what their income is per year, and the income sources, right? So what type of source information you're going to provide to us to verify that income. 1040 tax return, wages, self-employment income, Social Security, etc. You can also certify zero income. If a person is zero income, you or they would have to complete the zero income certification form and provide that to us. Okay. How are we looking on time? Oops, I'm 10 minutes over. Here on this page, property information, this is where you actually tell us about the property that you are applying to. In contact information, that's where we were looking for kind of the best way to reach you, your mailing address, etc. Here is where you tell us about the actual property itself. Where is it located? How many bedrooms, bathrooms? Is there an HOA? Do you currently occupy it? Was it your primary residence? All of these things we need to make sure that we have completed by you. When it comes to FEMA and SBA assistance, we mentioned that whole duplication of benefits process and review. We are not able to utilize funds for the same intended purpose. So we just need to make sure that we're aware of if you received any FEMA or SBA assistance. If you marked yes here, then you would provide us with that information. You know, how much were you approved for? When did you receive it? What was your FEMA number? Similar to if you received assistance from SBA, we would need that information. If you did not receive FEMA and SBA assistance, but you did receive assistance from insurance related to the disaster, you would click yes here and you would provide us with that information. So that's just kind of giving us an overview of any assistance that you may have received. For our mitigation program, again, you didn't have to have any damage from the disaster. So it is possible that you would put no for all of those because you didn't have anything to claim. This exclusions page, so in those first other two pages, you told us all the assistance that you did receive. And on this page, exclusions, this is where you tell us how you utilize those funds if you receive them. So did you spend any of that money on on any of the following as a result of the disaster: debris removal, repairs to your damaged home. If you were the victim of theft or vandalism, provide us with, or contractor fraud or something like that, providing us with copies of those police reports and things to help support that was part of where the money went, any legal fees or vehicle, temporary housing cost. If you receive funds and a payoff and it was a forced mortgage payoff, we would need copies of that information to prove that it was a forced mortgage payoff, and then upload any kind of evidence that you may have had. So this is where if you kept any of those receipts for things that you purchased or supplies that you used, you would be able to provide that to us. And our duplication of benefits team would review those, compare them to approved exclusions per HUD, and we'd be able to figure out what, if at all, any, your final DOB amount would be that you might have to you would have to remit to the program for us to move forward.
Like taking care of the cost of a permit to replace the water heater.
Yes, potentially, yes.
Right.
So here, if you or anyone in your household has a disability, we would just like to know so that we can make sure that we provide the necessary accommodations for you throughout the application process and the program process. It's really important here, especially if you're going for like a reconstruction, so that we would know what type of accommodations that they needed. And then if you have any reasonable accommodations for communicating with the program, like I mentioned, we want to be able to provide those to you. So things like you prefer telephone calls over reading things, or maybe you prefer everything via email, you would just need to let us know. These next few pages are focused on just making sure that you understand kind of your responsibilities, your certifications, and kind of agreeing to different things as being a part of the program, that you're authorizing us to do the inspection and construction activities, that should you make it to construction, you agree to have the site ready and there will be no interferences, or you won't refuse to move any of the things from the property that might be obstructing us or preventing us from doing the work. And you would hold us and our partners harmless. And then, of course, we have that Privacy Act. So you're giving us the ability to be able to use your information and things with the facilitation of this application and this process, but you do have the right to revoke that at some point if you choose to. And so we just want to make sure that we do protect your privacy as much as we can. Fraud acknowledgement is just you affirming that everything that you've put in this application is true to the best of your knowledge, and that you are not attempting to omit or put in any information that is incorrect or false in order to receive assistance from the program, and that you understand that if that is found to be the case, then you understand that violations of this could result in, of course, you being deemed ineligible and facing possible other penalties. This is your personal information release. Again, you're authorizing us to use and disclose your personal information for the purposes of this program. And so we've listed it here. So that allows us to be able to reach out to the county to help, pull some property tax records, right? So that's one less thing that you might have to provide to us. We can work with them on your behalf to get that, insurance claims, other information, property records, things that we really need in order to process your application. This allows us to be able to reach out to those folks and help you through this process. And then finally, you have the required documents page. So housing counseling is not required for the mitigation program, but for those who are applying for our reconstruction rehabilitation program, they would need to complete the housing counseling acknowledgement form, where that says that they have to complete at least one counseling session before, while in the program. The grant certifications, this breaks down more of like your responsibilities as an applicant in the program. And then for the 2021 program where we have landlords applying, there is a rental addendum. So you are able to download these documents here and upload them to your application. Or you can always move forward and submit those to us at a later time. So there are quite a few steps and questions in this application, but generally, when we time it, it takes about 45 minutes to complete just the questions itself. Okay. There are additional documents that are needed, but you don't have to submit the documents when you submit the application. Our case managers will work with you to get those added into your application. They'll call, they'll email, they'll task to be able to make sure that's there. It is, however, really, really beneficial and helps to move the application forward quicker if you do provide us with the documentation that we need. When you're doing the application, that's always the best. We encourage that. But if you don't have all of those things with you, especially like the things like receipts, or, you might have to go get a copy of someone's pay stubs or tax returns, you can still submit your application and we'll work with you to get that in.
Perfect. Oh my goodness, thanks for taking the extra time.
Right.
And we did it in less than 45 minutes.
Okay, there you go.
So a comment and a question, and I'm not afraid to stick my nose in business, so I will make a suggestion based on some of our experience running projects. I would recommend, if you can, make this adjustment, moving the language choice to the very top of the form, because I think they had to get through a whole section and partway through the next section before they could even choose another language. And if I was somebody who couldn't read anything until then, I would have a problem. And
Okay.
then the question, are there any tax implications for recipients of this resource?
Good question. I'm going to provide a little clarification because I've had this question be asked before, so I'm going to give a two-part answer. So there could be potential property tax ramifications with the improvements that we make
Oh.
to the property. It may impact your property taxes and things like that, which is part of the reason why, especially people in our rehabilitation and reconstruction program, are required to do the housing counseling session so that they can kind of be aware of the impacts this might have on them financially. On the other hand, while this is a grant program, we do not actually give monies directly to applicants.
Okay.
So that was a question that came up once before. People were like, oh, well, this is a $500,000 grant. I'm going to have to pay income taxes on it. No, that's not how this program works. One of the beautiful things about these CDBG programs or programs like Recover is that we're a one-stop shop. So once you come in, you go through the process with us. If you make it to the award stage, the program will determine how much assistance you need. Let's say it's $495,000. You'll be awarded the $495,000, and that money will be given over to our construction management team to perform all of the work.
Okay.
So in that sense, you won't have that spike in your income taxes because you won't receive the money directly. We'll just award you those funds, put them in an account where our construction management team can draw them down to complete your project for you.
Oh, wow, cool. Again, I apologize for running so long, but I do just have one more question. So
Okay.
can an applicant choose their own contractor, or do they have to work from a list of your guys's?
You would be working with our contractors. Again, a beauty of the program, we've already have
Yeah,
a construction vendor who does this type of work across the country. They've been working with us for a long time here in California. They have already vetted all of their contractors and everyone working on their projects. So there is you don't have the flexibility of selecting your own contractor. You also don't have some of the stressors that may come along with having to pick your own contractor, right? You can use our folks and we'll get the work done for you.
And if things go sideways, that's up to you
If
guys.
they go sideways, I'm sure you will call me or reach out to me
Yeah.
and my team, and we'll be happy to work with you as best to get it resolved.
Great. Thank you so much, you guys. I do appreciate it. And thank you everyone who actually hung out a little bit long. There's still a handful of folks left. So hopefully the information was informative. And I'm hoping some folks will find this and be able to benefit from the program. So yeah, Rachel had to leave early, but Fatima, thank you very much for your help. And I'm not sure, I've tried to avoid using your name, Sarita.
Lucretia,
Lucretia, thank you, because I was afraid to pronounce it, but
it's all good.
thanks for joining us, and thanks Fire Safe Sonoma team for hanging out a little bit long. I think that with our late start, we probably have an hour program to put on our YouTube channel, or maybe a tiny bit longer. But again, thank you guys for hanging out. Do appreciate